I mean, I know you got criticisms of Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson's Lord of
Yeah,
the Rings, but I mean,
minor.
minor ones. But I mean, oh my God, at least he took an interest in the books and in the writing,
Yeah,
and was like,
in sort of the what is it, in the, all of the behind the scenes sort of conversations that they do, about the movies. The book is brought up many a time, whether they're, and you could say, oh, they're just pretending. No, well, that doesn't seem right. There's no reason for them to really pretend. This is stuff that came out after the movies. This wasn't in advertising or anything like that. um
no,
there's
I
no
mean,
reason,
no,
no reason not to take them at their word there. And then you get absolutely nothing like that from any of the showrunners or anybody else that do adaptations these days.
yeah, I went to a convention years and years ago, in Bristol, and it was Lord of the Ring. It was basically like a mixed thing, but there was a prop designer there was prop designer there for Star Wars, but also prop designer there for Lord of the Rings, the Peter Jackson trilogy. And I asked him about like the books and all that at the time. I was like, you know, he said that the entire set, the camping ground that they were in New Zealand, like the entire set area that
Hmm.
where all the people, he said there were so many copies of the Lord of the Rings books with like footnotes in them, with writing, with everything in them, because um they would constantly they because there was like, I mean, he said, for example, on the clothing side, like descriptions of like what certain characters are wearing, the prop master and the designer who designed the clothes would look at that and be like, okay, so they're wearing this sort of like Gambon armor, or what have you, and they would take it from the book. I mean, he said that basically the book. I think he said to me, was it when whenever asked, Peter Jackson would just say, "Well, what does it say in the book?" And that was sort of like where he on those sorts on like the technical and the on the technical side of it, he would just refer to the book or something. But also they had on set um, people who were like lore masters from the Silmarillion and wider writings of Tolkien. So for like the language, right? So
Yeah, they
um,
Elvish and stuff like that.
yeah, Elvish. So you can tell that Peter Jackson, he wanted to tell. I mean, he was a fan of Lord of the Rings, and he wanted to tell the story.
Or
Um,
you could also just argue, even if you want to say, I don't, let's maybe, even if it's not fan, you could just argue that he wanted to actually make a good movie. He he
yeah,
cared he
he
cared
wanted to make a
about
good
the source
movie.
material.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, today he gets criticism. I see a lot of lefties who make criticism that there's not enough women. There's not enough women in the Lord of the Rings films. There's not enough diversity, which there isn't. But that wasn't his
Good.
intention, and
Well, there's
that's
no
it's good.
point.
It's a good thing. Yeah,
It wouldn't make any sense. There's no
yeah,
there's no need. He already sort of started breaking. Well, he already, made Arwen, a bigger character than she was in the books. I mean, she's a big character in the sense that her but she's in the background. She isn't a
it's her
she,
lineage that makes her a
yeah,
big character.
yeah, it's her impact on Aragorn from a distance. It's not
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
because everything's seen through Frodo's eyes anyways, not
yeah, yeah.
pretty much. So he wouldn't have much interaction with her anyways, and that's kind of the point, is that she's like this elf of high lineage who eventually becomes the queen, and so you know she's not going to have the girl boss elements that people want or that feminists want. And that's
But
and
yeah, that's right.
they um they experimented with her being at Helm's Deep, and it got a big backlash when it sort of was leaked that that was a thing, and they got
Yeah,
rid of that. They had to edit her out of the scenes because they had her in it. Which so
in
there was
in
so Peter Jackson still had some of those
yeah.
desire to sort of please people like that, uh, to to please the quote unquote modern audience, and so to speak.
But I imagine there were people on set that sort of put a stop to that. Or obviously there was somebody. There was
Well, I
some.
think it might have been just at that point the studios were not, and maybe even Peter Jackson wasn't actually like wasn't was more probably they were surprised by the response and then just were like, okay, well, we
Yeah,
that wasn't our intent, so therefore we're not trying to be political in that sense. We're not trying to like change things. They just thought, oh, they probably just thought it would be add some depth to their relationship. They were probably thinking story wise more so
yeah.
than politics. Now they just think politics and the story be
Now it's
damned.
politics. Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, yeah, and that's the other thing. Like, um, a modern version of Lord of the Rings, I can imagine most of the characters would be quite nihilistic. Boromir would not be presented in any heroic light that in his death sequence. Um, because they wouldn't have the mental capability to even depict him in any positive light. Um,
Yeah, well, it's
it
crazy because like one of the beautiful things about Boromir is just that he is he's fallen wisdom. He's that the idea that good people can still fall at any given moment, but then also be redeemed at the same time. Just because it's sort of like he's surrounded by some more perfected people. M- that's the only reason why he gets a sort of a bad rap by some people. It's just
yeah,
he's surrounded by better people.
and also the one thing that I think the film, I think, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I think it could have been shown in a different light. Um, I think Faramir, he is
He gets
uh
butchered.
he does. I think it's a difficult one. I think he is presented in the film in the Two Towers, uh where he makes the best decision against his own self-interest, letting Frodo and the ring go, even though it would, you know, uh,
Put him in a bad situation with
against
his
his father.
father.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bad situation with his father. Yeah, yeah. It basically put him in a bad situation, and it's not the popular decision. I think that was shown quite well. I would say I did like that because it actually showed the wisdom and also the dutiful heroic nature of the young captain of Gondor, and
Well, he still does that in the books,
yeah, that's what I mean. It's an accurate thing.
but they
I
make him
think
cruel to. They make him like cruel and um sort of uh
jaded, bit jaded about
jaded, yeah,
everything.
jaded towards Frodo. Like he um like he's a more of like a poet in the books. He's kind of like talking about like how like Gandalf talks about how Gondor has decayed and stuff like that. But those words are more Faramir's descriptions of like men building big tombs and stuff like that, and just hanging on to for dear life against death and stuff like that, and not
Yeah,
not producing children and stuff like that, not more worried about material goods and their own sort of while everything around them collapses.
yeah, and I would also say in the film, um, he yeah, because he is quite jaded, and the one thing I did like though is the actor's reaction when when Sam says to him. what really happened with Boromir, his brother, that the ring drove him mad and tried to kill him, and all that. And you
Yeah,
saw that
it's
reaction
not,
where it was that
it's not really.
realization.
Yeah, it's not really a criticism. I have no criticisms of the actor. I think it's just the direct. I think they needed to make. I think maybe it's this way: is they thought the Two Towers was um, needed to have a consistent tone.
Yeah. Just to summarize it, I think he should have had a more prominent role in the Return of the King than he did, because he was sort of treated as like a side character, like
Yeah,
Eowyn. He should
yeah,
have,
yeah.
as a side character in the second one. Yeah, sure, that fair enough. But as because this is about Rohan, ultimately, it's about Rohan and Frodo trying to with Gollum and stuff. But
Yeah.
in Return of the King, he should have had a far more prominent role, because he was a very prominent figure in this, and I thought it was a bit, you know, I think it could have been better, and I think also, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Tolkien said that Faramir was one, I think, his favorite character.
I don't know if he said favorite, but he's maybe he had really good things to say about Faramir, um, uh,
Or
which
maybe not favorite, but the one that he was the most virtuous, or something like that,
yes,
was the
I
best.
think it's
Yeah,
something like that. Like
yeah.
he's considered the most virtuous of all the characters. And he doesn't come off that way. Yes, he should have been one of the main characters in the third movie because he is he's principally the leader of Gondor. And after Denethor is, or kills himself basically.
Yeah.
Uh, and before Aragorn becomes king. And that's yeah, but they don't do Gondor justice. That in general, like the whole trilogy doesn't give Gondor, even the extended editions do a little bit better job, but still there's not depth to Gondor, and that's just a time problem, I think.
Yeah, I think also it was like maybe technology, like, for example, the battlefield outside Minas Tirith. If I remember correctly, it was meant to be farmland. Like, a lot of it's meant to be farmland.
Yeah, it is a farmland and villages, like, but they've sort of everyone's fled, like
Yeah, it's
everyone.
like ruins and stuff. So there was like
Yeah.
but yeah.
Well, also
Um,
they didn't have the gates, what's it called? The There's like a wall, another wall that protects the Pelennor Fields.
like a palisade or something.
Something like that. I can't remember what it's called. But like it's basically there's a double siege, which I guess they kind of just ignore that part, but and make it so that they breach the walls of Minas Tirith, because in the book the enemy doesn't get in get through the walls, like they destroy the gate, but they're distracted by the ride of the Rohirrim, and they don't get in and start slaughtering people, like they don't make it through.
No, I
But
mean,
they do make it through this other area.
yeah, I mean, I always visualized in the book the walls of Gondor, like the walls of the Theodosian walls in Constantinople, where it was like, I think I think maybe AM mentioned it in one of his streams, but I think the walls were meant to be sort of based off the walls of Constantinople, where there is like a 2 to 3 layer system where, okay, the enemy might get through one, or get to one, but it can't get like through the final one. It's the design of it is meant to be impregnable against a siege.
Yeah, let me see. But it's sort of like the also one of the big problems with those movies was that Gondor wasn't ready for anything, wasn't ready for the battle and stuff like that. Like they make Denethor a much more evil character than he is. Um, because in reality, in the books, he's been summoning Gondor's armies. He's been preparing, like he knows that it's coming, and he's trying to survive the best he can.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, he's governed by fear. You know, he's not. It's not entirely malice like he is um in the films. You know,
True.
like, it's fear that is sort of what governs him, and which fear is the enemy, of course, in the books. But yeah.
Let's see.
Um, I'm gonna have to head off in a minute, but I've got
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a,
Let
you know,
me
you have
let
a
me
few
just
more
get
minutes.
the. I'm just trying to find the what they call it. Oh, the Ramas Ekor. It's like the Ramas Ekor were great wall that surrounded the city of Minas Tirith and the Pelennor fields and its farmland and pastures. So it was sort of this wall, like that guarded the entrance into this area. Um, it was basically Osgiliath, and then there was a wall between Osgiliath and the Pelennor fields. So they had to get through that first, which I think they just kind of they sort of abandoned that idea in the movie and just replaced it with the actual breaching the walls of Minas Tirith.
Makes sense because going back to Constantinople, there was they had like farmland outside, but also inside the walls. So if there was like when there were sieges, it obviously before the 15th century, during its fall, but when you had like various other sieges, it didn't really matter because the city could just continue. You know,
Yep.
it would just continue.